All right, guys. So another thing to fear moving forward, this is in the Washington Post. Trump eyes privatizing the U.S. Postal Service, citing financial losses. Trump feuded with the mail agency in his first term. Privatizing it could shake up consumer shipping and business supply chains. So understand something. It doesn't matter that the post office had quote-unquote financial losses. It's not built to make a profit. That is not the point of the U.S. Postal Service. The point is to provide a service. Yes, it's funded by the government. That's okay. That's okay. That's fine. That's a good thing. There's some things that are worth not having capitalism built into it and worrying about a profit. So here, let's get into some of the specifics. This will be a disaster if he goes through with this. President-elect Trump has expressed a keen interest in privatizing the U.S. Postal Service in recent weeks. 3 people with knowledge of the matter said, a move that could shake up consumer shipping and business supply chains and push hundreds of thousands of federal workers out of the government. That alone would be a colossal catastrophe. Colossal catastrophe. Trump has discussed his desire to overhaul the Postal Service at his Mar-a-Lago estate with Howard Lutnick, his pick for Commerce Secretary and the co-chair of his presidential transition, the People said. Earlier this month, Trump also convened a group of transition officials to ask for their views on privatizing the agency, one of the People said. Told of the mail agency's annual financial losses, Trump said the government should not subsidize the organization. The People spoke on the condition of anonymity to reflect private conversations. Trump's specific plans for overhauling the Postal Service were not immediately clear, but he feuded with the nation's mail carrier as president in 2019, trying to force it to hand over key functions, including rate setting, personnel decisions, labor relations, and managing relationships with its largest clients, the Treasury Department. The government is slow, decades slow on adopting new ways of doing things, and there's a lot of other carrier services that became legal in the 70s that are doing things so much better with increased volumes and reduced costs, said Casey Mulligan, who served as a top economist in the first Trump administration. We didn't finish the job in the first term, but we should finish it now. The postal system is older than the nation itself. Founded in 1775 with Benjamin Franklin as its chief, revitalized with free rural delivery at the start of the 20th century, then transformed into a financially self-sustaining agency in 1970 designed to bind the nation together through the mail. Even through financial challenges wrought by the rise of the internet, the Postal Service has remained one of Americans' most beloved federal agencies, second only to the National Park Service in a 2024 Pew Research survey. But as congressional Republicans and others in Trump's orbit have clamored in recent weeks for federal cost cutting, the Postal Service has emerged as a prominent target. People who work with the Department of Government Efficiency, a non-governmental panel, blah, 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 have also held preliminary conversations about major changes to the Postal Service, said 2 other people familiar with the matter who also spoke on the condition of anonymity. The Postal Service lost $9.5 billion in the fiscal year ending September 3rd. I love this. It only costs $9.5 billion to send any piece of mail anywhere in the frickin' country. Anybody could do it at any time. You pay the tiniest amount when you actually go to ship it, right? Took $9.5 billion, and they're like, we got to stop that. We got to get rid of it. $9.5 billion is like what? 1 week's worth of the weapons we give Israel when we're over a year and balls deep into their genocide? Are you kidding me? This is the greatest deal of all time. It's only taken $9.5 million tax dollars to make this thing function. This thing is a modern marvel. Stung by continued declines in mail volume and slower than anticipated parcel shipping business, even as it made major new investments in modernized facilities and equipment, the agency faces nearly $80 billion in liabilities, according to its annual financial report. Well, we're now having the conversation about the military budget being $1 trillion. $1 trillion. By the way, the Pentagon's failed 7 audits in a row. They can't account for 61% of their money, but they're going to send another $900 billion, trillion dollars to them. And we're supposed to worry about the $80 billion in liabilities of the Postal Service? I'm supposed to dislike that? I'm supposed to say that it's unacceptable? Now we need to privatize it? By the way, what would privatizing it do? It would turn it over to robber barons and make it so they can loot it and make a profit. That's what would happen. Cuts to the Postal Service could upend the trillion-dollar e-commerce industry, hitting small businesses and rural consumers whose businesses and budgets make the agency the shipper of choice. Amazon, the Postal Service's largest customer, uses the agency for last-mile delivery between its hulking product fulfillment centers and consumers' homes and businesses. And the agency's universal service obligation, which requires it to deliver mail or parcels regardless of distance or profitability concerns, means it is often the only carrier that will deliver to far-flung reaches of the country. That's the most important point, guys. It's not profitable for, privatized services to go to a lot of places in this country, rural places in this country. It's not profitable. They lose money doing it. So it's the Postal Service that goes to places that nobody else wants to go to. So in other words, profit is not the concern, nor should it be. This is a service. Attempts to privatize one of the most prominent parts of the federal government could spark a political backlash, you don't say, especially for Republicans representing rural districts that the agency disproportionately serves. Federal officials from Alaska, for example, often invite postal executives to the last frontier to see how crucial the Postal Service is to the state's economy. Responding to inquiries about privatizing the agency, a Postal Service spokesperson said the agency's 10-year modernization plan has led it to cut 45 million work hours in the past 3 years and reduce spending on transportation by $2 billion. The agency is also seeking regulatory approval to alter its mail processing and delivery timetables to better align with private sector practices, the spokesperson said in a statement. The United States Postal Service is already engaged in an initiative to ensure that we can provide our customer with a high level of service to every delivery address in the nation at least 6 days a week in an efficient and financially sustainable fashion as required by law. Trump has long had a tense relationship with the mail agency. He once derided it from the Oval Office as a joke and in a social media post as Amazon's delivery boy. In the early days of the coronavirus pandemic, Trump threatened to withhold emergency assistance from the Postal Service unless it quadrupled package prices. So Trump wanted them to quadruple package prices. And his Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, authorized a loan for the mail agency only in exchange for access to its confidential contracts with top customers. Ahead of the 2020 election, Trump said the Postal Service was incapable of facilitating mail-in voting because the agency could not access the emergency funding he was blocking. The Postal Service ultimately delivered 97.9% of ballots from voters to election officials within 3 days. When he returns to office, Trump could have several options to exert control over the mail agency, though he may not have the authority to unilaterally privatize it. I guess we'll find out. The Postal Service has 3 vacancies on its 9-member governing board. Among sitting members, 3 are Republicans, and 2 of those are Trump appointees. Biden has 3 pending nominees, but the Senate does not appear poised to confirm them before Trump's inauguration. That's great. So because of Manchin and Sinema, we lost control of the National Labor Relations Board, and now because of Democrats dragging their feet, it looks like Trump is primed to have his way with the Postal Service. Significantly narrowing the universal service obligation, which has been recommended by officials during Trump's first term, would probably require an act of Congress. If approved, the Postal Service would almost immediately be required to scale back delivery service to unprofitable areas and downsize its staff, roughly 650,000 employees, fire 650,000 workers, and scale back delivery to unprofitable areas. I'm sorry, this is capitalist brainworms, man. This is capitalist brainworms. Not everything has to be for profit. We shouldn't even have health insurance companies. Single-payer Medicare for all we need for our health care, right? I would nationalize big pharma. You don't have to worry about profits for that. Virtually all the drugs that are created nowadays anyway are created with government funding at universities. Why do you need an independent third party to swoop in there and price gouge people, right? Some things you don't need a profit. You shouldn't have a profit. Some things should be part of basic governance in a civilized society. Jesus Christ. So anyway, I believe they go on here to describe ways in which they may go about privatizing it, right? But this is bad, bro. It dates back to the 1700s, bro. It dates back to the 1700s, and he wants to privatize it. I want to show you guys. Let me pull this up here. I have a tweet to show you. Here we go. This says everything right here. Ready? Shout out to Sean Morrow, who made this point. We need to call privatization what it is, adding a profit tax to a public good. A public post office puts all its resources towards delivering mail. A privatized post office will deliver a large chunk of its income to shareholders. In what universe is that better? That's exactly right. There's going to be nothing held sacred in Trump's second term. Nothing held sacred, and we're all going to be worse off for it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.